Okay, it is 7 o'clock, and so we will call the January regular council meeting for the Northport Village to order.
I have something to, should I do it first or?
Is Joe there?
Given,
Joe is here.
I think that, I think you should do, first item would be swearing in.
okay.
Okay, so at this time, we're gonna do a ceremonial swearing in of the new village trustees. All have been sworn in already and taken the oath of office, but this will be for the public. So, Joni?
And president.
And president.
So, yeah, if you will stand and just raise your right hand.
You already sworn in.
And we'll recognize that.
Yeah,
Trustee-
we're all doing it
Okay.
in public.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Trustee
Yes.
Google is also present.
So anybody.
There we go.
Okay, okay. So, hear me okay, Joe?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, great. Okay, so just repeat after me, and when we get to the duties in the office of, we have trustees and village president. So I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the
that I will
Constitution
support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution
and the
of
Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of
the duties of
the
the
duties of the office of
village president and trustees
village president
present trustees
in and for the village of Northport,
and for the village of
for the village of Northport,
county of Leelanau,
County of Leelanau,
county of Leelanau,
and state of Michigan,
and state of Michigan,
and state of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
There's
And
a
now,
bunch of people waiting, John.
okay, Joni's gonna get some people in the waiting room. And before we take the roll call, trustee Cavendish has.
Yeah, I have something that I would like to say if possible. Given the public interest in the residency of trustee Edwin Dean, and despite the prosecutor's decision not to pursue criminal charges in this matter, I move that the Northport Village Council direct the village manager, Jim Dyer, to contact the village attorney, Ross Hammersley, for an opinion on whether there are any civil remedies available to the village or this council concerning trustee Dean's eligibility and to continue to sit as a village trustee.
Support.
All right, we have a motion made by trustee Cavendish, supported by trustee Harper, as read. Any discussion regarding the motion?
I'm just curious why we need this since we have the opinion of the prosecutor.
Well, there are civil remedies that, and Jim could probably elaborate a lot better than I could, but I think that given the amount of interest, to put it fairly, that this has generated in the community, that we owe it to the constituents to make sure that we're proceeding correctly. It's a very gray area of the law.
Okay, and we don't think that Jim as an attorney can address those issues?
He's
It
not,
wouldn't
he's
be
not our
proper.
attorney.
Yeah, he doesn't represent us. We need the village attorney to do it.
And I also think from my perspective, there's a lot of
You
public.
said Sarah got it? Okay, thank God.
Somebody's not muted.
I've had a lot of members of public
Good.
asking me what's going on with this. And I feel like the members of the public do not have the prosecutor's opinion other than what we say. And so the last news they had was news stories saying that there was questions. So to me, it makes sense to try and clarify.
Yeah, this doesn't mean we're gonna do anything.
Right.
I mean,
understand.
but I think
understand.
we owe it to do our due diligence to make sure we're doing the right thing. There isn't really any direct case law on this. It's never really happened before that anybody knows. So,
All right,
I would definitely like to talk to Ross before we proceed. I mean,
okay,
Okay,
that seems reasonable.
Yeah, it was my understanding that Jim Dyer did contact the village attorney. At least that's what was in the article. I don't know if that was actually.
I have spoken with him early on in the case, not for this purpose, however. And to answer the question of why village attorney, when we have an opinion, well, first of all, we don't have an opinion from the prosecutor, we have a decision not to prosecute. And he contacted me today and indicated he would provide me with his written statement as to why he chose not to prosecute. But as I have said in the past to others that have asked me, if the standard to be a trustee is that I didn't commit a criminal act to get here, that's a pretty low standard, and I think we need a higher standard for that.
Can I follow up with that? I was given that written statement and he told me it was denied because it lacked evidence. And if there was a case, they would open it up and do an investigation, but it didn't meet that threshold.
Well, they did do an investigation, and I haven't seen the prosecutor.
Preliminary
I
investigation.
haven't seen, there was an investigation done by the Michigan State Police that was a completed investigation, and it was submitted to the county prosecutor for purposes of seeking criminal charges, not preliminary, completed. And all I have heard from the prosecutor, in fact, I haven't heard directly from the prosecutor. He left me a voicemail message indicating he would send me his memo concerning the decision not to prosecute. And until I see that, I don't see any basis for complete conclusion regarding the issue. And regardless, as I indicated, there are civil remedies that are different and separate from the question of criminal responsibility that would be directed to not the prosecuting attorney, who doesn't enforce the civil law and is not the civil attorney for the village, but would represent the village if there was such an action that we chose to take.
Well,
Yeah, I don't really see whether it was if there was criminal complaint filed or not, charges filed or not. It's a matter of civil law whether it's proper for someone to be serving under these circumstances. And that's not, the criminal aspect of it is a totally different burden of proof. And it's not really related to the question before us. I mean, we're under an expectation of due diligence to follow the rules of procedure for municipalities in the state of Michigan. And right now, it's very unclear whether by continuing, and for the time being, nothing changes, but to continue to have a member of our board seated, we have to make sure that he was elected or is still seated under proper circumstances. So that, I think, warrants investigation and an opinion by the village attorney. And he may come back and say, hey, you know what?
No problem.
No problem.
sure,
But we need to make sure of that.
okay.
So is Mr. Dean able to continue sitting in this?
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah, in the meantime, he's
Voting,
seated, he's a
okay.
member of the council. He can
Okay.
vote. He can
And
vote
does,
tonight.
has anyone talked to our attorney to see if he can render a decision on this within a month?
That would be,
No,
Well, I
this is
know
what we're,
this-
this is what
I'm
we're
asking
directing
it.
Jim to
yeah,
do.
he
That's
hasn't
Laura's
been,
motion.
we haven't directed him to talk to
This,
him
I
yet.
guess.
Okay.
Okay, so any other discussion? All right, we'll call the question then. Let me get everybody's name down right here. Starting with Will,
Yes.
Laura,
yes,
Hugh,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Edwin,
Yes.
and yes. All right, motion carries.
and Joe can't vote.
Correct. Sorry, Joe, you can't vote because you're not here.
He knows.
He's aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's unmuted, he's muted.
Okay, all right, so with that, the roll will show that all but Mr. Rubel are in attendance. For the trustees. We have the manager, clerk, and treasurer here as well. We have the approval of the agenda, amendments or additions, any? All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Approval of the council meeting minutes from November 14th. Those are in the meeting packet. Were there any corrections or have those been noted to the clerk already?
Motion
not.
to approve.
Yeah, I second, I didn't have any.
All right, motion made by Hugh, supported by Laura to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, none. All right, we've come to our first public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. You'll have up to 5 minutes. Not to engage in a back and forth. Hopefully your questions can be answered. There's a second public comment at the end of the meeting. Carl.
Carl Wazinski, I live at next door at 107 Park Street. I am on the agenda tonight for 10E and wanted to know if I could speak at that time, or do I need to speak now?
I would allow you to speak at that time. With 5 minutes, just to keep things concise so we can move forward with our discussion, if that's good with you. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other public comment? Either unmute yourself or raise your hand. If everybody's blacked out on the screen, I can see. Okay, well, seeing no takers, we'll move on from our public comment to our correspondence. There was some correspondence in the packet. Any other?
Just like to note that the visitor center request is included in our current budget, so that's our community promo budget. There's a request for funding for 2025
For
for the visitor center.
Right.
Yeah, we need $1,200, the same as last year.
But that's not on our agenda.
It's not. on
It's already in the
agenda for
budget.
approval.
Oh, it's part of the
It's in-
budget.
It's part of the budget,
Okay,
so
okay,
we
got
just
it.
provide you that information that the request has been made and we intend to fulfill it.
Okay, staff reports, clerk?
So you have the bill sheet and financial reports for November and December. Happy to answer any questions. You may have some when it comes time for the bills to be paid.
And under item 10 in my report on page 3, I provided some information regarding like 7 of the items. Remember, we do have 2 months, November and December, since we canceled the December meeting on the weather issue. And I chose those things that I thought might have some.
Yeah, I did have a question, but you answered it in your report.
That's what I was hoping to do.
I bet.
I approve of that, this new addition to your report. I think it's great.
It makes sense.
It helps a lot.
I wish I'd thought about it earlier, but
Well, and hopefully your predecessor will learn from your playbook.
well, my successor might.
That's what I meant. Hey, it's been a hard month.
If I may just note, so the payment for 2024 visitor center is on our, it's paid in December, so it's on the bill sheet. In the amount of $660.27. So that's half of we do share that cost with the township. So they request $1,200 from the township and $1,200 for the village. So our half for 2024 was $660.
All right, thank you, Joni. Diana, treasurer?
We have the report, we received everything from the county, we're all paid up in taxes and did some pretty good fundraising for the trip.
How'd the Venmo do?
Pretty good.
Yeah, just over, I think it was about $1,200, close to that.
Nice.
All right.
And we even had some people that use it to buy the hot chocolate and that.
Yeah,
as
that
well.
worked out
So
nice.
All right, that's great.
There's not chocolate.
Facilitated both things.
Cool.
Next up is DPW. The report was in the 2 months worth in the meeting packet. If there's any questions for Chris, other than what's in the
Chris here,
report.
I'm not sure it's here.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Today.
Okay,
I've got to say that, due to the circumstances of my life, this is the first night I have seen the village decorated for Christmas. And I was stunned, I gasped. So kudos to Scott and the DPW and everybody involved. It's
Right on.
amazing.
It really was nice.
I've had so many people say to me too, how much they love that the back is decorated this year too, like that it's all the way around.
Mhm.
So it is nice.
Yeah, it did. Nice job.
all right. Marina, I don't know, was there a bill here?
I don't think so.
Marina's pretty quiet this time of year, so.
No question
Contracts
about
are
that.
out.
They're coming in.
That brings us to our village manager, zoning administrator.
I provide you with the usual written report, and most of it I would leave for your reading pleasure. A couple of the items that we really haven't discussed to a great extent are the flagpole illumination. We discussed that with DPW, and there's been some citizens that have raised a serious question about the current light that illuminates the flagpole, because basically it just shines out into nowhere. And we're contemplating the purchase of a downward facing, solar powered, less, dark sky, intrusive, item that would light the flag as it's supposed to be if you display it, in the evening. These are units that are specifically intended for this purpose. And we intend to possibly make that purchase and get it installed at the same time we have the lift present in the village for the removal of the Christmas decorations. So I wanted to indicate, since it's within my discretionary spending authority, we're going to go ahead with that purchase unless somebody has concern or disagreement. That was the one item. Second, number 7 on housing, the reason that I included that, you're aware that we were pursuing the Buster Dames, deed restriction swap on 7th Street with the 7th Street property. That kind of came to a little bit of a halt when there was a transition in the leadership of the township. I've met with Supervisor Barb Connolly. She will present that to the board for purposes of pursuing that further, and I understand she'll recommend that they pursue that process as we were doing it with the previous administration. It may be approved at the 14th meeting on January 14th, more likely perhaps the meeting on the 15th. But we still intend to proceed as a case with that item. Then as for the item 11A, the discussion of committee meeting schedules, I put a fairly detailed recap of that. And what I think I'll do is I'll just read that into the record to begin the discussion so everybody online can hear the thought process. It largely discusses the issues that we discussed several times already and decided to defer until the time when we have new council members sitting. So I'll deal with that when we actually it's item 9A, it's 11A in my report, but they don't maintain the same number. I don't know if there's any questions regarding the report. I'd be happy to answer them.
Looks like none?
Just anything I would talk about is on
Sure.
the agenda.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, thanks for all the details, Jim, as usual, and we'll move on to our planning commission. Minutes were added to the Dropbox. Anything to touch on, Laura? Laura will be our new liaison officially, or you were already, weren't you? Or Jim
No, it was
was?
Jim.
Okay,
Yeah.
that will happen when we appoint our
Yeah.
planning commission members.
I do apologize. I intended to have
Sure.
planning commission minutes attached, but things got in the way, other things got in the way, and I
Yeah.
haven't prepared those minutes. It's a little actually unusual that we would prepare the minutes in advance of the next planning commission meeting.
Yeah, I mean, really, mostly what was discussed at last month's meeting was reviewing the property on, that's Vincer Way, that
Right.
property, and looking at that, the survey, discussing that further, which has been kind of an ongoing discussion there. And then, we're talking about you have it in your zoning here, and we talked about the hotel and the potential ramp, and remodel that they have going on there, which is still an ongoing discussion as well.
Correct.
But anyway, those are kind of the main things that were happening, and that we were gonna be working on master plan, the intro revisions, at our next meeting, which is next week, Wednesday, and those are ready and is going to be happening. So people who are interested in that may wish to attend next week's planning commission to see a first crack at that, the intro of and revisions. So, yeah.
Is it possible to name the potential lessee?
It doesn't have, I can say that the applicant is Daniel Cottle, but as to who the lessee or the actual name of the business would be. we
Or
don't
what
have
kind
that
of
yet.
business?
Don't know that, but it would be retail outlet.
I think
I think I do. too,
yeah,
But,
you know, through the grapevine, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, so he's gonna do a high-end, consignment antiques.
and the name of it is, and the name of it is in the application. The name of it is
It
there.
is, I think the
I
name.
can't
mean, I like
remember
it.
it.
When I was talking about the name of the business, I think the name of the store will be Pernett's. if I
Yes,
recall correctly.
yeah, I think that's
But
it.
the business name may actually be different
No.
in terms of the LLC or
Okay.
corporation that
Thank
owns it. But Daniel is the applicant, at least of record. And of course, the ownership is different. See, so he'll just be.
I understand.
Okay, brings us to, item,
I'm sorry, I just wanted to indicate that as far as the, I did receive today, and I didn't have it at the time I did my report, but I did receive today the actual site plan documents for the Vince Ray site plan. So I got them today. So it will be on, at least they'll be on record at the next planning commission meeting, whether we act on them or not, I'm not sure yet.
okay. All right, so then, next up will be item 9A, and that would be discussion of
No,
committees.
infrastructure.
Is infrastructure on
Yeah.
Yeah,
it-
infrastructure.
It should be. And
It
if it
is.
wasn't.
that? Oh, I got an old one.
Oh,
9A.
okay.
Okay, sorry, infrastructure.
Yeah, infrastructure, my report is there, so there's not a lot. There was a couple things that were significant though, that I just want to highlight. One is that the fire hydrant replacements, there's been a lot of ongoing discussion about that, and that there's been a lot of ongoing discussion about over the hydrants and what to replace, and they're in the budget a year and have been for quite some time, but we haven't been doing them. That funding is going to be, we've discussed and are recommending reallocating that towards a water main. And so DPW is working towards prioritizing the water mains and pricing out the ones that are the highest priority for them. And then the other thing that we started doing was talking through, there's a map, if you want to look at it in the infrastructure Dropbox, there is a map of the existing sidewalks. And then we went through highlighting areas that we have discussed here at council or at DPW about adding additional sidewalk areas, and then discuss some of the grant opportunities that might be available. If you would like to look at that map, that discussion is going to be ongoing at the next meeting. So you are welcome to check that out in the infrastructure committee Dropbox. If there's questions, I can answer.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can move on to 9A, the discussion of committees, meeting schedules. And Jim, you said you wanted to
Yes. I
lead
think-
in, lead
Yeah,
on.
just for the public that may be listening in, this is an item that we've been discussing for some time, and again, decided to defer until we had a new council seated in the new year. I'll just read into the record my report on that issue. When we last discussed, it was determined that it might be more appropriate for this issue to be considered after the November election once the village council members are seated. Current practice provides for one village council meeting per month with separate subject matter committees that meet to consider various issues for later presentation to the full council. This process worked well at a time when the village did not have a full-time manager responsible for village administration, the preparation of the village budget, and the research and development of proposals for consideration by the council. Since I have been here as village manager, frequently staff initiatives were discussed at these committees, and then the same discussion was repeated for the full council. In fact, sometimes just days Like we would discuss it in infrastructure and, or finance, and 2 days later it'd be before the village council. It has resulted in many as 5 or 6 meetings per month, where only one of those meetings actually reached a final decision. It's been my opinion that the system is inefficient where a village manager is in place. It is my suggestion that the village council eliminate the committees other than the finance committee, and instead hold 2 full meetings of the village council per month, one of which would be a committee of the whole for discussion of items, and the second meeting for final consideration. Such a schedule would duplicate the work of the committees, but eliminate several meetings per month. And that's largely for the staff. I mean, some of you sit on more than one committee, but it is a considerable burden on staff to attend and deal with all of those meetings. Such a schedule would duplicate the work of the committees, but eliminate several meetings per month, while at the same time including the entire village council in a discussion of important items of merit consideration at 2 separate meetings. Such a schedule would also permit time for public consideration of those issues and informed comments at the meeting by the public where the decision would be finally made. I suggest that the rules of the village council be amended to permit this schedule. Also, rather than appointing committee chairs, we can appoint trustees that would act as issue liaisons or champions, or however you want to describe them, with the administration and the staff to assist in the presentations of items at the working committee of the whole. This schedule would also give the opportunity to arrange a village council schedule that would not interfere with township meetings. For example, tonight, the Township Planning Commission considers an important issue, the cell tower, making citizens choose between 2 important meetings. I would suggest the schedule would permit the working committee of the whole be held on a day other than a Thursday during the second week of the month, that's now our current only meeting of the village council is in the second week. And the other meeting could be held on the 4th Thursday. This would give staff the added opportunity to not just present financial information to the council at a full meeting like we do now, but would give us at least 2 additional weeks to review and analyze the financial data as necessary, something we do not have the opportunity to do now. Obviously, moving to the schedule would require substantial amendment of the council rules and procedures. It would be sufficient at this point for the council to give me direction to prepare a draft of these revisions, considering the schedule suggested above for final consideration at your February meeting.
A couple questions for me. Would Joni also be taking minutes for this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. And
There's no motion.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
I
there's
would
no
make
motion.
one.
Well,
Well, you don't,
We don't
I
need
would
one, it
suggest you
sounds
don't
like.
really need a motion.
Well, to direct you to, I mean, I'd like to see the
template or whatever.
Yeah, a draft of the rules, and that's gonna not be, a 2-hour job, it's gonna be a little more than
I've
that.
been thinking about it, pursuing that for time.
I don't think it'll be too bad, I mean, I'd be willing to go over drafts with you. But I'm in favor of it. Yeah, there's another, may I speak?
Yeah, you may, yeah.
There's, the daytime committee meetings are not well attended by the public, and they're not well received by the members of the board. In a lot of cases, they interfere with work and kids and just about everything else, and the public doesn't get to see, the sausage being made. So I even though, I hate to say this, and I'm gonna kick myself in July, I'd rather meet twice a week or twice a month at night, than have to go to committee meetings, which I think we end up hashing out some stuff, then we have to take it to the board anyway, and it seems maybe not counterproductive, but not as efficient as it could be. And so, I'd like to try something new. I think we can always go back if it's not working. But I don't love what we're doing now. I don't think anybody likes those 1 o'clock meetings, do you? Yeah, and then also it's the real burden on the committee chair because they have to take their own minutes, and that's why I've been really happy not to chair a committee and
Yeah, right.
time I've been on this board, so.
The only thing I see though is the oversight of like the waterfront committee was always keeping an eye on the waterfront and the drop boxes.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I think. that
We
you
could still have
Harbor
officers.
master and.
You can
Yeah.
still do that, and that's what I would suggest is what we would do. If we could still retain, you could still be the liaison for the purpose of the marina. And you would be the one that would be reporting at that committee of the whole to say, here's what's going on, these are the issues that we need to address. And then we can start, working on them just the same way we do at the committees. It's just everybody on council will hear that information.
Oh, I agree with what you're saying. It's just as long, will the harbor master be here as well then, for that meeting?
We have to talk about that, but yeah, that's. Because right now, he's got to attend that meeting.
Yeah, it's the same number of meetings for all the department heads.
Yeah.
So
And we
why
can
not?
we can certainly zoom in department heads, just like we do now if necessary, so.
And it gets them all there because sometimes there's crossover between Holton and Bill.
Mhm.
So, and Holton might not come to a waterfront meeting but he will be at this new hybrid meeting. They'll all be there.
Yeah.
I like it.
Laura, you got your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of it. Like, I really don't like the repetitiveness of talking about stuff and then talking about it all over again. And I definitely would appreciate having fewer meetings in the month. My concern is, I am concerned about the time of a second meeting though, and how long that meeting will end up being, because even if I do attend 3 meetings a month, those are split up and not taking up most of my day, and I'm concerned about the length of time. And then I am not in agreement that I want it to be at nighttime. That does affect my schedule and it does affect my kids, whereas when it's in the daytime, they're at school, which doesn't affect me at all. So I do, like, that's my other concern, is that switching to that. And then if we do an evening meeting and it's a long meeting, how long are we going to be here? Because that concerns me also. I realize maybe we don't start it at 7 then, but those are just some of my thoughts and my concerns. And if I'm the only one that doesn't want it to be 2 night meetings, then I'm the only one. But it seems to me that it would be better for staff too, if it's a time that they're already scheduled to be here and paid to be here.
Yeah. What I would probably do is, in doing the draft, would just be preparing that with the date, time, left blank, because those are the issues that you're gonna have to decide, because you're the ones that have to attend the meetings, so.
Yeah, I also, to Hugh's point, I agree, but I think you were saying that you were still gonna have kind of like liaison chair
Yeah,
people that are managing
you-
different sections. It's just,
Right.
it would all be together,
You
so.
I would
still be
imagine
the
they would prepare-
instructor, and you would bring forth the items that you want to
Right.
discuss at
Yeah.
that meeting that are critical, and
And
everything else is
everybody
kind
hears
of,
it, so we don't have to
yeah, and
repeat
that
it.
way,
Yes.
we're
which
all
I would
involved in
love.
the decision making, and then when people ask about what's going on, we know.
Would this second proposed meeting operate on Robert's Rules of Order?
oh, yeah, sure.
Mhm.
I mean, because our committee meetings are, at least ours, are
Sure.
sort of loosey-goosey.
Well, that's, yeah. I
And
mean,
they're much more casual and,
Yes, they would.
but I guess we figure it out.
And remember that Robert's Rules of Order is intended, the main purpose of Robert's Rules of Order is to protect minorities. And when I say minorities, I mean a minority group of a larger group. That's the main purpose behind Robert's Rules of Order. And in a lot of cases, those issues don't really apply at a committee of the whole meeting, which is a little more freewheeling than a meeting like this would be.
Okay.
You know,
I like that idea.
yeah,
But I'm also, with Laura, I'm concerned about the length of time that this committee of the whole meeting might.
Well, because I
might
know that
take.
some meetings are not that long, some don't even meet every month, so there won't be stuff that's on the
Right.
agenda, but I do know, so first of all, planning commission will always be separate, because that's a separate body that is not the same, so that meeting won't be combined. But my infrastructure meetings, I mean, I know that everyone loves me so much, but they're usually 2 hours, so and they can be shorter, I guess, we'll do less, but then less on infrastructure will get done every month, so.
well, I'm not sure that I would agree with that. What, the way that I would view the role of the liaisons would be to make sure that the issues that need to be discussed are discussed. And again, I think the lack of repetitiveness would tend to reduce rather than increase the time of the meetings, but.
Well, I definitely think it would when it comes to DPW stuff too, for sure.
Yeah.
Because, I
and-
mean, he reports to us and then he reports this very same things like all over again, and people that aren't on
Right.
infrastructure have the questions we already know the answer to.
And it can be a way for you as a infrastructure person to continue to communicate with the village manager so that
Yeah.
things are being attended to and the critical things are being brought to the council
And
as
in some
needed
ways,
in conjunction
we
with each
we
other.
could structure the committee of the whole to, rather than literally holding, an infrastructure meeting, a marina meeting and all of that. What you would do is the committee liaisons or such would give a report that could be read in advance of or at the meeting rather than discussed over a 2-hour period of time. Because you do detailed infrastructure reports and that could be helpful to review, get it at the meeting, get it at the committee of the whole meeting, review it, and then in 2 weeks, address the issues that are discussed there if they're on the agenda and it's necessary to do so.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna end up,
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. I just have some concerns of how we make it work. But I don't think that means we shouldn't do it. Like, I definitely agree with, I think there's more pros than cons,
Mhm.
like, for sure.
It will evolve as we
Mhm.
figure out how to make
I
it
think it will.
efficient. Okay, so I think we agree that we'd like you to do what you,
I'll have that ready
Need
for
to
your
do.
meeting in February and we'll proceed on that basis.
Okay, so that would bring us to our new business. If we're finished with nine either, which would be a appointment of a planning commissioner. And there's a motion. I'll read it. I move that the Northport Village Council approve the village president's nomination of Jane Gale to fill a 3-year vacancy on the Northport Planning Commission.
A second.
All right, made by McCann, supported by Cavendish, to approve Jane Gale to a planning commission seat for 3 years. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you, Jane.
Yes, thank you,
thank you,
Jane.
Jane.
Next
Thank you, Jane.
up is item 10B. This is a motion for mutual consent to appoint a new NLTUA board member, Mike McMillan. His letter of correspondence was in the packet, and I hope everybody got to read it. He's been on the NLTUA for 18 months and been the chair and done a great job, and so I hope you will support this nomination. Go ahead.
I move that the Northport Village Council appoint Mike McMillan as the at-large member of the NLTUA board, subject to the mutual consent of Leelanau Township.
Support.
All right, moved by Laura, supported by Will, to approve Mike McMillan as the at-large member, subject to mutual consent. Discussion?
I just want to say that I really support this and think that continuity is important, especially for that board.
Agreed.
Agree also. All right, so all in favor of Mike McMillan as the at-large member, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have a motion to appoint the ZBA chair. And Will, would you be willing to do that again?
I will.
All right, so I would move that Will Harper serve as the Northport Village Council Zoning Board of Appeals Chair.
Second.
Moved by McCann, supported by Cook. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Will.
All right, next up, a little bit more. Item 10D, this is a motion to approve the selection process and search process contract for our new village manager. Somebody want to read the motion?
Yes, I can. I move that the Northport Village Council ratify the village manager's acceptance of the service agreement with Michigan Leadership Institute and the schedule of interviews proposed as presented.
Second.
Or is moved by floor, supported by Susan. A motion as read to approve the Michigan Leadership Institute schedule interviews proposed as presented. Discussion.
And you have.
We have Chet Janik
here as well, that you may want to hear from him, before you get into your discussion.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on a roll there.
Yeah.
I was just like, bam, firing him off.
We were on a roll there.
Talking about long meetings and.
I can make my drink.
And I promise,
Football game started.
I promise I won't read page by page of this, this is mostly for your review.
Yes, sir.
But I agree with the comments about beautiful the village is, look, driving in, and you see all the Christmas lights on that
Is this
tree.
any different than the packet we got 2 years ago?
Oh, yeah,
Or a year and a half?
some of it, some of it is, some is not. So let me just go over this. The schedule that I developed, and I met with Chris and Jim last week. So we reviewed the schedule, made some adjustments originally just because I know there's some conflicts in the month of February. So the job we posted as early as tomorrow. I can tell you I've got quite a few phone calls already from people, and 2 resumes have been submitted,
How many?
2 so far, and it's not been posted,
2, and how many phone calls would you say?
6.
Phone calls.
And not all from the region, so word has got out informally, and people are interested. So the job we posted, I'll start actually tomorrow, but I've put the week of January 13th. So by next week at this day, the job will be posted, and I'll go over where it's gonna be posted. Deadline would be February 13th, typical, that's 4 weeks. I've done about 8 to 10 searches in the past 2 years. 4 weeks is about the typical time. We want people to give them time to think about it, talk to their spouses, some of them talk to their employers, some don't. So deadline would be February 13th. Shortly after that, you all would receive a packet of all the resumes. I'm a firm believer that everyone should have a copy of all the resumes. All the candidates have the right to stay confidential. And so, depending on your schedules, when you could come back, because I know you will be out of town. Should have a special meeting to determine which candidates you wish to interview. And that you can legally go in a closed session to discuss the candidates and who you wish to interview. Come out of a closed session, you have to make a motion on the date and which candidates to interview. But I will contact the ones that most likely will get interviews prior to get their consent. So you can speed the process forward and still be in compliance with the law. Based on the comments I had from Jim and Chris, looks like earliest you could do a full board interviews the week of March 3rd. So you do first round March 3rd. As last time, I'll provide you some sample questions. You make a decision who you want to bring back for the second round on March 10th, and hopefully make a decision on March 10th. Once you get to the finalist, I'll do the background checks, reference checks prior to the second round of interviews. So you can make a decision fairly quickly on March 10th and then start contract negotiations. That makes sense?
I have 2 questions. Is it correct that the charge that you are citing, the fee, your fee is less than it was last time?
Well, last time you had me as, yes, it was, last was proposed. Last time I proposed it just to do the search was 6,500, it's less. Because I have the materials, and I just have a passion for Northport. It's 40% less than the lowest base fee for MLI for any search. So
Second question, what role will Jim play in this?
that's up to you. That's up to you. Sometimes boards and councils want the outgoing person to play a role, sometimes they don't. So that's strictly up to you.
I would definitely make the argument to you that I should be included. I think that.
I would
my-
agree.
my-
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Good.
I mean, it's up, I want to be around to do that. That's one of the reasons, again, that you have the 90-day transition in my contract to, to commit this, and we're trying to stay within that as much as possible. If the schedule is adhered to, we'll actually be able to have perhaps a week, maybe 2 of transition, minimum. And it's not that I'm gonna be very far away. I've told Chet, and I'd tell anybody that applies to the job. In fact, I actually had one of the, I don't know if it's somebody that submitted a resume, but somebody that is interested in the job stopped in yesterday and asked me all manner of questions about the village and how the job is done and how I approach it and that sort of thing. And so I'm certainly willing, and I told that person that I would be willing to, do anything to ease the transition even after I take the position as county administrator. So yeah, and the other comment that again, this has really a lot less to do with me than it does to do with you guys. When you hired me, you told me you wanted somebody to come here to be a leader and to assist you to run the village professionally. Now, to the extent I've been able to do that, it's been largely because of you. And I think that's the reason you're getting a lot of interest in the job. Because this is the kind of job that somebody in this position wants to do. They want a council that functions like you do, that understands that they are a policymaking board, basically stays out of the way of the village manager and allows them to run the village as appropriate. That is, for a lot of people in my position, frankly, a dream job. And I really attribute that less to my abilities and what I've done and more to what you've done to support me as your village manager. And I think that's the reason you're getting people that are interested in the job, frankly. Because you guys.
So one question I do have is about the zoning administrator portion of your
Yes.
job. Like, what are we?
I was
Okay,
gonna-
Okay,
we
okay.
did talk about that.
that's fine. That's,
And that's one of the changes from last time, so.
yeah,
So assuming that's schedule satisfactory, I'll go forward with this schedule. I know you wanna get it done, but as you all know, this is probably one of the most critical decisions you'll make in the council. So it's critical that all of you participate in the process. And so that's why originally my draft schedule had the interview starting in February. But I know Chris is not available and I know some other conflicts with some things, so that's why it's the first part of March.
FYI, I'm not going to be gone February and March of this year as I typically am.
Yeah, I think they told me that, so it's good. So, nowadays, virtually all the resumes come in are through online sources and postings. So next 2 pages is just a draft, and this, on the online postings that will come on various websites, and I'll go over the list later on. The biggest,
Is this wording identical to last time?
a little bit, there's some difference, especially about the zoning, which I'll talk about.
Okay.
The biggest thing I need from you, and I talked to Jim and Chris, is the salary range. To me, that's critical. We talked last week about a range from 80 to 95,000, which includes zoning responsibilities, zoning administration responsibilities.
To your point, that's one thing that we felt was very important, is having the manager / zoning administrator. Having the zoning administrator here every day to answer questions, has helped move things in the village along. And the candidates can learn zoning, right? I mean, that was.
And you may get a candidate like me that has the experience already, but even the individual that stopped in at my office yesterday was aware of that requirement and said, he was going to start taking, like he was going to sign up for the Michigan State's extension, the extension service for the citizen planner, and then pursue the zoning administrator track as well. So that was one of the reasons that and again, I'm still willing to, even after I become county administrator, to have a transition period to help train that person. That's going to take longer to train a person if you have them do that than it is to be a village manager. You're going to get most people that are going to apply for this job are going to have the administrative skills. They may not have the zoning skills. But for a period of time to have them, acquaint them with the zoning ordinance, acquaint them with the issues that they're going to have to deal with, and get them up to speed over at least, I think, a couple months after they take office. But I've been convinced that having a zoning administrator here on a daily basis is more of a critical thing than I might have even expected it was when I took this job. So.
Good feeling on that. You ready? Yeah. Okay.
The biggest question is that salary range.
Yeah, and we've got 80 to 95 with the comprehensive package benefits. I mean, that's sort of in the range we were in last time, right?
Well, it's higher than you were last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But last time zoning was not,
Right.
it was optional.
And it's within the salary of what I'm receiving now.
Okay,
Got me thinking about applying. I'm kidding.
come on. Your arm will be all good to go.
So when it comes, then I also posted a PR material about the village. A lot's the same, but if you're looking at, there's two sections that talk about zoning. And I kept on the second page, it's a little darker here. I didn't bring my glasses, but the individual should have the willingness to learn and administrate village zoning regulations. So you may have someone that's very interested and may not have zoning background, as most of that point out. There are classes from Michigan State and it is possible to learn that skill. And so you could put that as part of the employment contract that within X months, that person has to be certified.
Oh, look at, is this from last time? It resides within 20 miles? of
Yes, we
Northport?
talked about that last time.
We did.
Yeah.
And how many miles do you live?
It's 18 miles.
You can waive that,
But
but last time the council felt that they wanted someone local.
Right, and
What that you did?
what we did in my contract, despite what that
Yes.
said last time, we did in my contract, it was largely because of the market for
Right. I
housing.
remember.
I would love to, and we looked for houses in Northport,
Yeah.
there was just nothing available. And what I put in my contract was that I had to live within Leelanau County.
Yeah.
Rather than within
Right.
20 miles,
So-
because
Legally, you can require that.
Mhm.
It's in there just to, I think, give a message that you want someone locally committed to the
yes.
community. If it comes to a candidate that finds a house 21 miles away.
Yeah.
You can.
And I can tell you, when I was looking, even before, in my application process, I was using Google Maps to figure out, okay, is this house within 20 miles or not? And like I said, there were just not that many houses available, and we were damn lucky to find the one that we did, really lucky.
But last time, at least in jury, we felt that was critical to have someone strong, or someone that would develop strong local ties.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
All right.
It's interesting because I did search in Branch County, which is on the Indiana border. And one of the things they wanted is to have that person make sure they live in Michigan.
Oh.
But I got a legal opinion, you can't do that because they have to live within 20 miles of the county, so they could have lived in Indiana. They did find a house in Branch County, but
Okay.
that was a big debate.
I call the question. I think it's-
Okay, yeah, made by Laura, supported by Susan to approve the village manager selection process and search process contract. There is a monetary amount here, so we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Edwin,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Hugh,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes,
Will,
Yes.
and yes, motion carries.
So as of tomorrow morning, I'll start posting the position. And the invoices like last time for the ad who will write to the village, there's no markup that way. And that's what we did last time too, so there's just no markup. A lot of times government agencies get cheaper rates for ads than I would get them, so we did that last time, worked out well. And it should be about $1,000 total for all the ads. In my MLI contract, there's $700 for fees. You won't get $700 in fees, so they won't be going to do that, but. No, I did get flack from my peers at MLI, I think it was the cheapest contract, instead of making them look bad when they get back to their communities.
Well, we certainly appreciate that.
Well, like I said, a lot of work was done, I had a lot of respect for all of you, you've come a long ways in 2 years. And as Jim pointed out, and Jim's being humble too, but he played a big part of it. But from the outside, it looks like it's a great team approach. And when you open up the Little Enterprise, you don't see the village of Northport on the front page. Everybody vouches for us. So that's always a good thing, so I think all of you should be congratulated, and Jim should be congratulated too. And for the record, I just want to go publicly on the record, I did not recruit Jim Dyer for.
Sure, yeah, right.
And I can attest that that is true.
So I will give you regular updates by email on the process and how many applicants.
Okay,
You won't get the applicants until after the deadline.
Okay.
okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, that brings us to 10E. And I did tell Carl that I would give him, 5 minutes to address the council here. And,
Do we need to make the motion first?
sure,
No,
no,
I think you should let him, have his public comment, and then we should see if the motion gets made or if there's even support for the motion.
Okay,
Otherwise, what's the point? I kind of suspect this motion might fail for support, if anybody raises it at all.
okay. Well, Carl, I will give you your 5 minutes as I told you I would. If you'd like to address the
I would
council.
prefer, Chris as president and been involved with the lawsuit that was filed by the village and followed it through and made part of the decision to discontinue the lawsuit and not approve of the survey that was done. So the village spent between $30,000 and $40,000 on something that,
This is your 5 minutes right now?
Well,
We can start it.
I
right
would
now.
prefer,
We can start your 5 minutes right
could
now.
somebody do an introduction here for the new people?
I'd be happy to.
Go ahead, Jim, if you want to introduce Carl here.
Yeah, I included an item number 5 of my village manager's report, a fairly comprehensive description of my attitude towards this request, but again, back, several years ago, the village pursued a plat modification lawsuit, which unfortunately by Michigan law actually requires the plaintiff in that action to name as a party defendant all of the property owners within a certain distance of the plat. And you'll see in the material that Mr. Rosinski provided, I'm calling you Carl. In the material that Carl provided, one of the items was what's called it's a circuit court civil docket. The first couple pages of that is a list of all the defendants. I didn't count them all, but it looked to me like there were in excess of 50 individuals named. The problem with that is, even though it appears as though you're being sued as an individual, in that context, it's your property that's being sued. It's what we lawyers refer to as an in rem action. It means you're suing the thing, not the person. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to most non-lawyers, but that's the way it is. You're actually giving notice to the property that your rights are potentially subject to change in this plat modification. That was pursued, and basically the issue presented was the property that abounded where Park Drive is. A good portion of that property, in fact, most of that property is owned by the village of Northport. It comprises the village hall, the village DPW, the partially abandoned but partially retained right of way for 2nd Street that was never built back in the early days of the village, largely because it was platted across the Northport Creek. And there was really no way to build 2nd Street, so it was there, but it was ultimately not, the street was not built, and as a result, the village still retains ownership of that area. The village has long maintained Park Street and would have been able to assert what's called a highway by user, because there is no express, other than the first 20 feet of Park Street from Naganaba north, there is no indication in any of the plats about where the Park Street is located or that it's dedicated to the use of the village. That was a practice that was common in the 1850s when the city was founded, or excuse me, 1830s when the city was founded, village was founded, but that is not the case now. A plat would require an actual indication of where the streets are, a definition of what their width is, and a dedication by the plat owner to the village. That didn't happen back then. In the, I think it's the plat of 1856 as my memory serves. And the village hired an attorney, John Viganowski, I believe was his name, and a surveyor, John Core, to redefine all of that and get a final judgment from the court as to where those items, or excuse me, those lot lines would be. I've done 2 plat lawsuits in my tenure as an attorney. They are awful lawsuits to manage. I did it as corporation counsel for Calhoun County, so I was on salary. If I had kept track of my hours, it would have been an exceptional amount. Because they're very difficult to handle. And any attorney that suggests to you that they are easy and snap and can predict to you how much the cost will be, he's not telling you the truth. That's the bottom line. But anyways, the village began that lawsuit and have partially through that lawsuit decided to dismiss that claim and essentially abandon any relief requested in that lawsuit. They did so, the village did so, shortly before there was a scheduled mediation that could have, but was by no means certain that it would have resulted in a final judgment by agreement. Because again, what the plat suit does is it's one party goes in and says, this is the property that we own. The other parties will go in and say, no, that's not true. Here's why. And the judge makes a decision. And he issues a judgment just like normal. And that judgment gets filed as a revision of the plat. That did not happen. The village incurred substantial fees. I've heard suggestions in excess of $50,000, and it was all said and done. But chose to abandon that lawsuit when it was pretty clear to the village trustees at the time that the cost would be excessive, particularly when compared to the potential gain in the end and the result in the end. Carl and his corporation, Three Rivers Properties LLC, were defendants in that lawsuit, and actively participated in the litigation. And when the lawsuit was dismissed, they also got no relief as a result. That kind of, I think, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add in your 5 minutes presentation, Carl. But
Yes, if you could just address on the survey side, why the village did not accept the $20,000 with the survey. You're better to explain it than I is, but we have monuments 18 inches apart, and I think it's very confusing to have monuments there 18 inches apart. And I know that it's in the minutes, but I don't think
I can explain that. What Carl is referring to is that during part of the process of the plat modification, the surveyor hired by the village did some surveys in terms of where he thought lot lines were and placed monuments. But those monuments have no legal significance because they were never included in a judgment. They are not addressed in a deed. And so they're frankly they have no more legal significance, in my opinion, than a rock a rock buried in the road. So in terms of what happened, what the village did, it was they're actually, and I think I included it in the email that was my response to Carl addressing those issues. That the village did consider it paid for the survey. But one thing that the surveyor requested that the village do is accept a certification, and the village determined not to do that. And again, the reason being is it had no legal significance. In my opinion, if I had been the attorney for the village at the time, I would have indicated there's no point in accepting it because you're not gonna record it, you're not gonna do anything with it. You've abandoned and dismissed the lawsuit, so there's no point in anything further. And the surveyor ultimately did turn over those files to us, and we have those in our records, but they're just sitting there doing. Frankly. But
Okay, I can start my 5 minutes.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Jim.
Okay.
Let's see, I'll begin where, about the lawsuit. So, the lawsuit did not pass unanimously. There was one vigorous, Will thought that this was an inappropriate way to handle this and included on the Dropbox, as Jim said, is the procedures, the defendant list, as well as the procedure list from the court. The one document I would like to talk about is I had experience in the 90s with my commercial property back in Novi, and it was a horrible, horrible process. And when I heard consent judgment and that they were moving forward with a consent judgment, I began interviewing attorneys. What I learned from my first experience with a consent judgment, you have to have a very good attorney who has gone to court with consent judgments. You can't just hire any attorney for a consent judgment. And I feel I took more than a month interviewing people, and I think I got the right person. He had a house in Glen Arbor on a lake, and he worked for a firm in Oakland County, but he was very interested in up here. I contracted with him in October, so I think you have in your package, did they get the package that went?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you can see the list of my attorneys. So I spent, I split it between my two groups. Three Rivers owns the commercial property, which is the Mitten, which they've leased now for 9 years this month. And I have another 9 years lease on that. And then my home, my residence is 400 square foot cabin next door. And so I have 200 feet on Park Drive and 100 feet on, well, this, you call it Park Drive, but it's really Second Street. There was something that John Core said at one of the meetings that didn't sit well with me. So I called the Lara and spoke to Nicholas Cleaver, who I talked about what the village was doing, and he said, I can't come out and talk to them, but I can give you a PowerPoint. So he sent me a 30-page PowerPoint that I asked a couple council members to look at, and could we get together with someone and go through it. And it's in the Dropbox. You did not include it in your package, but it's 30 pages. And yes, it's extremely complex. And I learned my lesson the first time around. So what the results are before I got 4 of these, so this is what I got from the county today. So after all that money was spent, this is what the county has for the property next door. I'm gonna hold one.
that wasn't, I did include a copy of. that.
Yeah, that's in there.
Oh, it is?
And
Okay.
they all have a copy of
All
it.
right, well, then
But I can see it here, yeah, unless you
Yeah.
want to keep it.
So, yeah, so when this discussion started 5.5 years ago, the sheriff, Korkovich, brought me this, which showed that actually my property was 66 feet wide. And that property was, the road was on my property. I asked for 2 years to get relief from liability, and they wouldn't do it. So 2 of the council members here recommended that I deed it to
1 minute, yeah.
Will, and Will did that. And so you can see now that Park Drive still is not marked as a road, either a second, and that Will now owns 16 feet of Park Drive. And I was requesting 4 foot, and they said Jim did a deal. This is very hard to do in 5 minutes. Jim and I contracted his third month. We came in here and we agreed that if I allowed the village to continue to use my Christmas tree and my facility for Halloween, that they would deed over the 4 feet. And that was brought to this group up in February of last year and approved the resolution. The one, I needed a deed that I could take to my attorney and say that this is real, because this is 150-year-old nuts. Chris, when he first got here, he went down to the basement and looked at the records. Could you, in 1 minute, see what you told him what you found in the records downstairs?
Nothing.
Okay, never mind. But this has been going on for decades. This council has known multiple times that the Park Drive and Second is the problem, and they just kick it down the road and kick it down the road, and that's what happened this time. So I'm asking. Okay, I'm done.
I get, there was a nice.
Yeah, you want a couple, okay, you want a couple extra minutes to finish up?
No,
there?
no, I am really done. I
Okay.
cannot tell you how done I am.
Okay. Okay, so any discussion? Or,
We don't have a motion.
oh yeah, that's right.
Well, I would like to have more discussion, a little more discussion. So.
We can still discuss without a motion.
Without a motion,
Yeah.
it's permitted by.
So my last understanding of this was that the village had agreed to certain things.
Yes.
That would satisfy you,
Yes.
and have those things happen.
Well, let me tell you the timing on that, and I couldn't fit that in 5 minutes. Or Jim, do you want to do
I'd be
it?
happy to do that.
Thank you.
We agreed, well, first of all, you passed a resolution in February of this year that would have given Carl the 4 feet that he believes is his after the deed to Will Harper. And that was based upon surveys that were prepared by Nick Onan. That was my understanding, had been commissioned by Carl.
Yes.
And so I indicated, I was having trouble figuring out how to draft the, because this is an unusual way to draft a legal description for what we were actually going to give to Carl. I was having trouble doing that. After a period of time, 6, 7 weeks, whatever, Carl sent me that survey that he had. And I contacted Nick Onan. We missed each other a couple times. I, by my own fault, went longer than should have. It took longer than I should have to prepare those deeds. And Carl called me out on it, frankly. At a meeting, I think it was maybe the November.
Is when the equipment to decorate the tree was in the parking lot here, I called and said, we have not signed the agreement because I did not get a copy of the deed.
Right.
So there's no agreement for the
So
facility.
in November, I got the deeds together after a little bit of research with and meeting and spending a lot of time with Nick Onan, trying to understand the issue and what Carl's perspective was. Prepared an appropriate deed and sent those to him. And it was after that I received the email requesting the payment of the attorney fees. And I hope Carl will agree, we had discussed that back in February, and I said, my opinion, if I include that in the resolution, that resolution will be absolutely rejected by the village council, that they would not pay those fees. And I thought that was fairly clearly understood at that time. You passed the resolution, and again, my fault, absolutely take responsibility for the delay in providing the deeds, but I have provided deeds to Carl that absolutely do comply with that resolution. They absolutely comply with
They
that
comply with the
resolution.
resolution, but I indicated I needed to have my attorney.
And that's fine.
And I did send it to my attorney.
And that's fine.
And I talked to the access company, and they really do not they have questions on them, and we never got here because you said, if you have any questions, write them down, and I did on November 6th. I wrote them to you.
And I responded to them recently and that they had nothing to do with the deeds, Carl, unfortunately. They don't have
Okay.
anything to do with the deficiency of the deeds, and I will tell you, there is.
Do you
absolutely
have
nothing
a legal opinion from Ross that they're,
wrong. I
you have
don't need a
written?
legal opinion.
You don't have a legal opinion from the attorney from the village?
I don't need a legal opinion from Ross. Actually, I did send a copy of the deeds to him. I don't have a written opinion, but he agrees with me that they're properly prepared.
Okay.
They're properly prepared. And I've prepared hundreds of deeds in my time, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, but I've never heard anything that would indicate to me why they're incorrect.
Because the description is not on the deed.
Carl,
It
it is
attaches-
absolutely on the deed.
All right,
It's
so
included by reference.
at this time,
Point of
there
order.
is no question called right
Yeah.
now. We're in a discussion based on this topic. If any
Right.
council members have any other further discussion on this topic,
My understanding, listening to you two, is that there perhaps is an issue with the deeds,
There is
perhaps,
no-
perhaps.
I believe there
here, right now,
Wait-
it
wait a
sounds,
second,
okay,
wait a
you can
second.
talk, you're not gonna talk right now.
I
He said it's 5
believe
minutes.
that if there turns out to be an issue with the deeds, that Jim would correct it.
True.
Okay.
And therefore, I think the issue with the deeds has nothing to do with the issue with the attorney's fees. So, Carl, my leaning is that attorney's fees is not something we do.
Will, you got your hand up?
Yeah.
Will, you got your hand up?
Yes, and I'm sorry, but remember the audience has had us 5 minutes, unless he's called on to answer a question. I prefer to remain silent. All these invoices are dated, the latest one is 2023 for legal fees. And that's a refund, it looks like.
That's a refund because
Excuse me, Carl.
Carl, point of
Not
order.
your turn to talk. We're not talking about any legal fees incurred because Jim was late with anything. Let's just make that clear. This is all from attorney's fees that could have been may have been requested and rejected by a judge. That is when you request relief for attorney's fees. Carl's attorney signed off on the dissolution of the suit without getting the attorney's fees from the judge. The judgment was no costs were awarded, period. That's the end of it. We have no liability to pay this. Absolutely none. And if we do pay it, other people are gonna come with their hands out because other people had attorney's fees too.
and I
This is a
hope you
very-
never do this to anyone
Carl,
else.
point of order, please. You've
Okay.
had your time, okay?
I agree with Will.
Okay.
Carl. I do believe that the issue with the deeds can be resolved between the two of you. And we want that absolutely resolved. But the attorney's fees
I
is
don't-
something else.
So, okay, so
Well,
is there any
you
other
should be
discussion?
voting.
Will,
You're gonna be asking.
Carl, please, point of order. Would ask you to leave if you cannot contain yourself, okay?
I believe. I don't believe, I watch this.
Okay. There's no further discussion on this matter. We'll move on to payment of the bills.
Where are the bills?
There's two, correct?
Yeah.
So should I do them each individually? Payment of the bill, I move that we pay the bills from December in the amount of $85,520.03. As well as pay the bills for the month of January in the amount of $50,472.02. Is that correct?
Or
November and December.
Oh, it's November and December. I'm sorry. Okay, I amend my motion to those.
I second the amended. motion.
All right, so it's made by Laura, supported by Susan to pay the bills in the amount of $50,472.02 and then $85,520.03. Any discussion? Regarding-
Like I said, the questions I had were answered in Jim's report, so.
Okay, And,
Other than overtime is really low again.
all right, roll call vote, starting with Will,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes,
Hugh,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes,
Edwin,
Yes.
Chris, yes. And motion carries. Bills are paid. Okay, this brings us to our second public comments. If
Before
you,
you-
sure,
Let me make a comment, particularly about the last new business item. You may want to consider whether or not you actually do want to make the motion, have it seconded, and actually go on record voting for it, because I believe this issue will rise again if you don't. You may want to consider
agree.
doing that.
okay,
I agree. So I move. I'm willing to do it. I move that the village council, no. I move that the Northport Village Council approve Carl Luzinski's reimbursement request in the amount of $11,234 as presented.
sport,
there was a motion made by Susan, supported by Hugh, to approve the reimbursement request in the amount of $11,234.
I request you call the call.
Yep.
Call the question.
And, starting with Will,
No.
Laura,
no,
Hugh,
well,
Susan,
No,
Edwin,
I mean, I would like to hear more, to be honest. This was something that's brand new. I mean, I don't think I'm able to abstain from voting. Is that correct?
that is
Yeah,
correct.
correct.
You do have to vote one way or the other.
Okay. Um. And then I guess I agree, no. No,
Okay, and it's a no. So the motion fails.
Unanimous.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll come to our second public comments. Thanks for that, Jim. If anybody in public would like to make a comment, you can unmute yourself. Jane, I see you there. If you, you want to talk?
I just want to thank you for the appointment to the Planning Commission, and I look forward to working with all of you in a somewhat different capacity. But I have to say, it's nice being on this side of the Zoom screen tonight.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, Jane, and look forward to your continued service here on the Planning Commission for the village. Anyone else in public? Okay, that would bring us to our council comment. If any council members have a comment to make.
I just want to say real quickly that I look forward to working with all of you at my first meeting. I've already sent Joni my first rookie question about getting the right links to the Dropbox and stuff like that. But please feel free to reach out to me if I can do anything to help any of you in your jobs. I look forward to working with you.
do you anticipate being here next month? Might we meet you next
Yeah.
month?
I don't know, it depends, probably when it gets a little bit warmer. I have a lot of business travel, so sometimes it makes sense, so I gotta sync it up.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep, if there's no other takers, we'll motion to adjourn at 8:23.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.